Hey guys, this is Vineet and today I'll be discussing with you guys a problem from CodeChef called Up for a Game. So this is a very interesting problem and I'd like you to solve it on your own first and then refer to this video for an explanation. So let's get started. So let's see what this problem says. Okay, so Chef is playing a game with his best friend and the rules of this game are pretty untrivial. So firstly, we are given a stack of n disks, okay, and each disk has a certain non-negative and distinct integer written on it. So the players play alternatively, that is, they exchange turns, and Chef starts the game. This we are given with. So they also agree upon a set of positive integers s of size k. Okay, so we are given a stack of n disks and a set of integers s of size k. So it's guaranteed that S contains 1. Fine. So in one move, what does a player do? A player selects a value from this set of integers S and those many integers are popped up from this stack of disks, right? So if we select suppose 2, then the first two integers are popped out from the stack of disks and get added into the account of that player. And then the other player plays his move. So how did the scoring work? So if suppose the first player takes out two integers a and b in his move, so his score gets increased by 2 power a plus 2 power b. And then suppose the other player draws another two integers c and d, so his score would be 2 power c plus 2 power d. And then again if other values are added, accordingly the scores will get added, right? So at the end, whoever has the highest score wins the game. So we are supposed to find out who wins the game if Chef starts. So we have to print out the winner of this game, or if the game ends in a draw, then we need to print out draw. So let's have a proper understanding of this question through a sample input. So these are the two arrays which are given to us. So this is the stack and this is the allowed jumps. So Chef makes the first move. So let's say he chooses 2. So since he chooses 2, these two integers fall into his account and his score gets increased by 2 power 5 plus 2 power 7. Okay, after this move, it's Gary's turn. So Gary has only one choice left. Since there is only one element left in the stack, he cannot choose 2, right? So he has to choose 1. So his score will be 2 power 1. So this is the end of this game. So now Chef's score is greater than Gary's score. So Chef wins this game and hence we print Chef. So this is how the game works. So let us also have a look at the constraints for this problem. So the value of n ranges from 1 to 10 power 5. So we can have one conclusion that the overall time complexity should not exceed n squared. This is because in 1 second only 10 power 8 operations are allowed and n square is 10 power 10. Okay, so we can have big O of n, and since k is always less than equal to 100, we can also have big O of n times k, or we can also have big O of n log n and so on, but not greater than n square. Ai and xi, the values range from 0 to 10 power 9, and for this the value ranges from 1 to n. So this is a very interesting and important point. The values in both the arrays are distinct. So for any I which is not equal to j in an array, xi will never be equal to xj, which means all the values are pairwise distinct. This will be a very crucial point for forming our approach for solving this problem, and we'll see how we make use of this condition. Okay, and set s contains the integer 1. So we'll see why it's important. So the most basic and intuitive approach which one might think of while solving such a problem would be to use the greedy approach. So one might think of that, yeah, if it's Chef's turn and he's starting from the 0th index, so let's give him the maximum score possible from the 0th index. So it would be like if we are starting from here, it would be to choose 5 and then he would get 2 power 4 plus 2 power 5 all the way till 2 power 3. So the greedy approach here would be to choose the largest score that we can in the current move. And how would that be achieved? It would be achieved by choosing the highest value from the moves array which we possibly can choose. We have to keep in mind that the number of jumps should not exceed the length of the given array. That is, it should not cross this length. Fine. So I'll show you why this approach fails in the first place, and we'll discuss, and I'll show this to you through an example. Okay, so let us take this example. In the first step, if we play greedily, then chef's score would be 2 power 4 plus 2 power 5 till 2 power 3, which is equal to 62. Right, so we reach here. Again, if we choose greedily, then Gary will choose 2 from this moves. Why won't he choose 4 and 5? Because the remaining number of elements in the stack is 2, so we cannot choose 4 and 5. So he chooses 2 and he gets 2 power 0 plus 2 power 6, which is 65, and we reach the end of the stack, right? So we see that Gary wins the game if these are the set of moves that are chosen. Okay, so now I'll show you another approach where we don't use this greedy method from the very first step and we choose a different set of moves. Okay, so we are again at the 0th index. Chef is playing the move and let's say he chooses 4, right? So he reaches here. So this is 2 power 4 plus 2 power 5 plus 2 square plus 2 power 1. So this value turns out to be 32 plus 16, 48, and 4, 52, and 2, 54. Then it's Gary's turn. He cannot choose 4 and 5 again because the remaining elements are only 3. So he again chooses 2. Let's say he chooses 2. Okay, so his score will be 2 power 3 plus 2 power 0. This is 9. So again Chef plays and he has only one choice left and he chooses it. So his score gets increased by 64. So we see that Chef's score is 118 and Gary's score is only 9. So Chef wins it. So we see that we get a different result in the favor of Chef when Chef doesn't start greedily. So this can conclude that the greedy approach alone won't fetch us the correct result in this case. We have to use some other exhaustive approach. Okay, so from the nature of the problem statement, we can make quite a few observations. Though the first one and the most important one, whoever gets the largest value in the stack is surely going to win it. So for example, if the stack contains these values 2, 4, 7, 6, 5 and 1. So my statement is that whoever reaches the value 7, that is whoever scores 2 power 7 is going to win this game. Now how do I justify this? So if I add up 2 power 0, 2 power 1 all the way till 2 power n minus 1, what will be the result? So from the property of GP, we can say that this sum is equal to 2 power n minus 1. Okay, so what does this mean in context to our problem? It simply means that if there are these elements present in the stack 0, 1, 2 all the way till n, we can say that the sum of all of these values till n minus 1 will still be lesser than 2 power n. So if one player gets 2 power n and let's say the other player gets all the values from 2 power 0, 2 power 1 all the way till 2 power n minus 1. So this player's score will still be lesser than the second player's score because of this relation. Fine, so we can conclusively say that whoever gets to 2 power n is going to win the game. So what is our new target now? Our target is to find who will reach this index first. So this will be our target index and let's call it position max. So whoever reaches position max through the given set of jumps will be the winner of the game. Okay, so let's check out our next observations. Okay, so the second observation that we can make is that the game will never end in a draw. So either Chef wins this game or Gary wins the game. That is, we always have a decisive winner. Now, there are 2 points which support this statement. First of all the elements in the stack are distinct. As I had discussed during the constraints, that this point is very, very important in forming our approach to the solution. So, as all the elements are distinct, there's only one element which is greater than all other elements in the stack. So, if that element is X, then only one of these two players can reach X first, and his score will get incremented by 2 power X. So the person whose score will get incremented by this value wins the game. And since X is not repeated in this array, only one of this player can have this score. Okay, so the second point which supports the statement is in the set of jumps, 1 is always present. Let's say we have these values in the stack, and in the set of jumps we have only value 1, right? So if we have value 1 in the first move, Chef can make 1 jump and reach 3. In the second move, Gary can make 1 move and reach 4. In the third move, Chef again makes 1 jump and reaches 5. So this will go on, and ultimately we will reach the end of the stack at 1 position. So the maximum value in the stack is sure to be reached by either Chef or Gary, because 1 is always present in the stack. So since this happens, we can assure that this value will be reached at some point of time. Hence, we will have a winner. So this shows that the game will never end in a draw. One of these two players will win this game. So now I'd like to introduce two very important terms which we'll require for solving this problem. So first is a winning position, second is losing position. Out of the n indexes that we have in our array, we'll categorize each one of them as a losing or a winning position. So if an index is a winning position, it means that the player who is going to start his move from that index is surely going to win this game. And if it's a losing position, it means that the player who is going to start his move from that index will surely lose the game, no matter which move he chooses or which jump size he takes forward. We'll have to categorize each one of them as a W for winning and L for losing. So let's see how we'll do this. So as I had discussed earlier, we need to find out whether each position is a winning or a losing position. So our end goal would be to only find out whether the first position is a winning or a losing position. If the first position is a winning one, then Chef wins the game, else Chef loses the game. So let's find out how we'll determine whether each position is a winning or a losing one. So let's say we start at the 0th index, and for all other indexes we have arbitrarily placed whether it's a W or an L. There's no clear logic behind how I've placed it. It just okay. So I'll just show you how we'll calculate the winning or losing state of the 0th index through these indices. Okay, so these are the possible jumps that we can make from the 0th position. Let's say I first choose 1 jump. Okay, so if I take 1 jump, I'll reach here. So I have 1 win, and let's say I take this let's say I take 2 jumps. If I take 2 jumps, I'll reach here. So this is a losing position. So yeah, and if I took 4 jumps, I would have reached here, right? So we have the possibility of reaching at either a losing position or a winning position from the 0th index. So from the point of view of the player who is playing this chance, so he'll always try to land at a losing position. Now try to think about this. Try to think about the reason behind this. So if he lands at a losing position, so the next chance is going to be played by his opponent. Okay, so his opponent is going to start his chance at a losing position. And as we had discussed earlier, if he starts from a losing position, he is sure to lose the game. And if he loses the game, the other player wins it. So the other player who had earlier landed at the losing position wins the game. So his approach would be to land at a losing position. Okay, so this is a winning position conclusively, since we are able to reach a losing position. So if there is even one losing position that we can reach from here, then this place would be declared as a winning position. And if we can only reach winning positions, let's say I remove 2, so our only two possibilities would be this and this from the 0th index, and both of them are winning positions. So even if I reach here or here, the other player who is going to start his move at either of these two positions is going to win this game because it's a W marked position. So in any case, this player loses the game, and hence it's marked as L. So I hope it's clear how we determine whether an index is a W or an L position. It solely depends upon the state of the indices it can reach up to in one move. So for the 0th index, it depends on the first index, on the second index, and the fourth index. So here we are kind of forming an optimal substructure. So because the 0th depends on the first, second, and fourth, let's mark it like this. Okay, so it's making calls to these positions to determine their state. Now again, the first one would be calling to the immediate next one, the second one from the first, and the fourth one from the first. So it will call f of 2, and it will call f of 3, and f of 1 plus 4, that is f of 5. Cool. Then again 2 makes a call. So here we are getting an optimal substructure. There's one important observation too, that some of these calls are getting repeated. As we can see, f of 2 is getting calculated here, but it's again getting repeated here. Similarly, there will be other repetitions too if the size of this call stack would be greater. So what can you think of right now? Yes, you are right. We'll have to incorporate dynamic programming in order to memorize these results. Now let's see how we'll incorporate dynamic programming over here. I'll be explaining it in a while. So the basic rule of thumb that we apply in such problems is that we create a recursive function and then we keep on making recursive calls, and whenever a recursive call terminates, that is, it returns a value to its caller, then at that position we memorize that result so that in the future if any similar calls are made, then we can directly return the result instead of computing it again and again. So this greatly brings down the time complexity of our code, and this is what dynamic programming helps us with. So let's see how we'll incorporate that idea. Okay, so let us now have a look at the code for this problem. So we are creating a function which will tell us whether a given index is a losing or a winning position. So we first pass the DP array, which we'll use for memoizing the results. Then n and k are respectively the sizes of the two arrays which are given with. So n over here is 3 and k is 2. Okay, so position is initialized as 0 and it represents the 0th index. So we are starting with the 0th index. So position max contains the index of the largest value in the stack. So over here 5 is the largest value and its position is 2. We are using 1 based indexing for representing it, and ARR and steps are the two arrays which we are given with. Very fine. So DP is firstly initialized with the value -1. So we'll fill DP with 1 if the given index is a winning position, and we'll fill it with 0 if the given index is a losing position. Now let's talk about the return type of our function. So it's a boolean type function. So we return true for a winning position and we return false for a losing position. So there are two base cases defined for this recursive function. The first one is if position exceeds n, which means that our current index is greater than the size of the stack. Now this is not a valid move. So in this case, the player who plays this move is considered to lose the game and the opponent is considered to win the game. So the position we reach is considered to be a winning position, and hence we return true. So we return true. In the second place, if we make a jump and reach at an index anywhere between position max and n, which means in this case if we land anywhere between 5 and the end of the stack, it means that after this jump, the player who made this jump has already scored the value 2 power max, since he passes by the maximum value in the stack. So in this case, that player already wins the game, and hence the current position becomes a losing state. Since the first player has already scored 2 power max, so he's already going to win the game. Right, these are the two base cases. So if we have memoized the result, then DP position will be set as 0 or 1. Over here, it is -1 for the 0th index, so we ignore this step for now. Okay, so now we start a loop from 0 to k. We'll explore all the possible jumps that we can make. Okay, so we start this loop, and firstly I is 0. So now we again call this function with position plus step size. So this, firstly we started with f of 0. Now f of 0 is making a call to f of 0 plus steps of 0, which is 1. So it's making a call to f of 1. Right, so we start again with position 1. So position 1 is not greater than n, so we'll not return anything. Position 1 is not greater than equal to position max. Over here position max is 2. So it's not greater than equal to 2, so we ignore this step also. And the first position is not being set in the DP array, so we'll skip this part too. So now we again start this loop. So again position f of 1 is going to make a call to this recursive function. So it again makes a call to f of 1 plus 1, which is 1 plus steps of 0, so f of 2, right? Okay, so we'll start again with position 2. So 2 is not greater than n, so we skip this part. But yes, 2 is greater than equal to position max, and rightly so, because the second position contains 5, which is the greatest element in the stack. So we return false. So as this is false, variable win will not be incremented. So, okay, so now f of 1 again makes a recursive call. So we'll pass f of 1 plus steps of 1. So steps of 1 is 2. So f of 1 plus 2, which is f of 3. Right. So, okay, so again 3 is greater than equal to 2. So we again return false, and again win will not be incremented. So we come out of this loop, and now win is equal to 0 for this case. So what does this mean? This means that both the times we landed at a losing position. So in that case, since win is not equal to 2, so we set the current position as a winning position, because both the times we had landed at a losing position, so it's a win situation for index 1. Right, so we memoize this result, and the first position is a winning position. So in the DP array, we change the first index and we set it as 1. So since we have got the result for f of 1 and it's a winning position, so we increment win for the 0th index. So win is 1. Again, f of 0 makes a call to f of 2, f of 0 plus 2, which is 2. So f of 2, right? And we know that, and we already had calculated this result. So f of 2 is greater than equal to 2, and hence we return false. So since it's false, we'll not increment win, and we also break out of this loop. Now the value of win here stays 1. So win is not equal to 2, and hence we have calculated the value of dp0 also. So dp0 is also 1. Okay, at this stage we can stop our function, although since we have already calculated the state for the 0th index. So since the 0th index is a winning position, so chef, who is going to start at the 0th index, is guaranteed to win this game. We will return that chef wins this game, and we'll print this result in the main function. Okay, so let us now try to assess the time complexity of our given problem. So over here we find out that the time complexity is big O of n times k. So let us see why we get this time complexity. So moving back to the code, we can check that when we had passed the 0th index, we were running a loop k times. Okay, so for the 0th index, we were calling k elements in the worst case. Okay, so since the size here is 2, the 0th index is calling 2 elements. Now again the first index is going to call 2 elements, and also the second index is going to call 2 elements if the result is not memoized. So we can conclude that each position is going to call k different values in the worst case. Now, so once f of 2 gets calculated here, so once we calculate f of 2, the next time, even if f of 2 is being called, it will be solved in a constant time, right? This is not going to get evaluated like many multiple number of times because we had already saved our result in this part of the code. So this is why dynamic programming brings down the time complexity. Had we not memoized our results, then we would have landed up with an exponential time complexity. So this is what dynamic programming helps us with. So next up, we'll talk about the space complexity of our code. So the space complexity is big O of n. Why it's big O of n? It's because of the array which we had used, the DP array, which was a one-dimensional DP of size n. There is one extra space consumption, which is the recursion call stack. So the size of the recursion call stack would also not exceed big O of n because at a time only n elements can be loaded in the stack, and once the n plus 1th item is loaded in the stack, the nth item is popped off. This is quite intuitive and you can check this fact out. So in the recursion call stack, whenever a function call returns any value, only then we move to the next call. So like here, if f of 2 returns true or false, then we move to f of 3 here. So the size of the call stack still remains 3. So this was it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something new from it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.